Welcome to another Wolverine Chronicle exclusive segment, Behind Enemy Lines. We're looking at Week 4, Michigan versus Rutgers. I'm going to get everybody all the intel on Rutgers here. I've got Aaron Breitman of the Scarlet Faithful joining me. Aaron, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing, sir?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. And I guess we're, less than 48 hours away. And it's obviously a huge test for Rutgers and excited to see how they do.
Well, we'll get into the nitty-gritty details in a second, but let me lead by saying I hate when Michigan plays Rutgers. I just despise you guys. Honestly, you're pesky. You guys always give us a run for our money. Shiano teams are always tougher than they look. So, I believe we should be able to handle Rutgers, and you can tell I'm a fan because I say we. I'm not a traditional member of the media. I definitely identify with Michigan. So let's jump right in, man. I'm gonna grill you. I'm gonna ask you some questions, and then if you want to pick my brain about Michigan near the end, you can grill me as well. What position group do you expect to be the strength of this team in Week 4?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, the strength of the team is running back. Kyle Monangai has been tremendous, leading the Big Ten. And he's, just gotten better year after year. He's added a lot of muscle in the offseason. Sam Brown's a guy that, was a true freshman last year and was really the workhorse back for a few games and then got injured for the year against Indiana. Aaron Young's the guy that's had success against Michigan in the past. He's their best pass catcher out of the backfield. He hasn't even played yet. And then they have a true freshman, Jashawn Benjamin, that's been pretty good as a change of pace guy. So they're pretty deep there. But the big question for Rutgers is, can they run against Michigan? And that's the big unknown. And if they can, obviously that's going to really bode well for their ability to stay competitive. And if they can't, it's going to be really tough. So they're going to have to establish things through the air, I think, to open up the running game. But that is the strength. But if you're talking about this week specifically, I think, defensive line has a real shot, I think, to be very disruptive. I know the Michigan offensive line is good, but this is the best defensive line Rutgers has probably had being in the Big Ten now a decade. They're deep. They have a lot of guys on the edge that can create havoc. And they've gotten multiple contributions. They have 8 different guys have sacks, and they've been just able to pressure the quarterback in a way that Rutgers hasn't been able to do in a long time.
Well, this Michigan O-line has not been quite as dominant yet this season as we're used to, and so it'll be interesting for me to see going up against this Big Ten defensive front that you guys have. I kind of expected you to bring up running back first when I asked that question. That dude you guys have is a stud. I think he got Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week last week, and so That'll be an interesting matchup. What position group do you expect to be a weakness of this team?
Well, it goes back to offensive line for sure. Is the big question mark for the team. They've rotated a ton of guys already. They played 10 guys in the opener, 11 in the second game. Not quite as many against Virginia Tech. Tyler Needham, the starting right tackle, is out with an injury. So they're trying to find the right combinations. They've done fairly well. Pass protection's been pretty good. It's been the run game where it's been inconsistent. They've been pretty good in short yardage situations when they need to get, those 3 yards, they get it. But they've been really bad in the third quarter. It's really been, I think, a product of conservative play calling. Rutgers has grabbed a lead at halftime in every game by, multiple scores. And then, Shiano's content to just kind of run the ball and run the clock out. And in the third quarter, they've 9 drives, 8 punts. And a lot of it is the predictability. And they've let 2 opponents, Temple and Virginia Tech, get within 1 score in the fourth quarter. And then when they start to kind of turn it on again, they're able to blow those teams out. Now, that's obviously not going to work against Michigan. And how well will the offensive line hold up? Will they be able to give Wimsatt time to throw? And will they be able to open up some lanes for running? They have incorporated a lot of blocking with the tight ends, the wide receivers. Everyone's blocking really well. And that's kind of what's been key for Rutgers is everyone is on board. Everyone's working towards the same goal. You have the running backs picking up blitzers. Everyone is doing their part. But obviously, facing a talented team like Michigan in the Big House is going to be the biggest challenge to date. And how that offensive line holds up is a big, big question.
Yeah, they truly do resemble their coach. You know, when you said everybody's blocking, everybody's bought in, they're kind of unified. Like I said, Schiano is one of those guys that, you know, you hate to be against him, but I'm sure you guys love having him on your side. If you were going to identify just one player to be like the offensive player of the game or the offensive player to watch on Rutgers this week, is it one of these guys we've already mentioned or somebody else?
For this game, I think this is the game where they need Gavin Wimsatt to really step up. You know, they're not going to be able. Monangai has been tremendous, but they have to establish something in the passing game. I think to be able to have success, you're going to have to hit on a few big plays. He's got a huge arm. He had a 61-yard reception to Jaquay Jackson, transfer wide receiver. He's made some big throws this year. His accuracy has always been an issue. He is better in short yardage. He's 82% under 10 yards, but he's pretty inconsistent outside of that. But he also has an ability to run. He had a 35-yard touchdown against Virginia Tech, so he can mix it up. He runs the RPO pretty well, but he's going to have to connect on a few pass plays, I think, for Rutgers to A, be able to stay in it, and B, have any chance to win, because they're just not going to be able to line up and run it, you know, 70% of the time and expect to have success against Michigan. So I think he's the guy in this game that they need to step up.
That's a fair answer. You know, and Michigan's secondary has been banged up. We believe we might be seeing Will Johnson and Rod Moore in this game in Michigan's secondary. But if not, those backups are going to have to step up. Keon Sabb is a name that has played well, but is not a starting guy in that secondary. So it'll be interesting to see how Wimsatt, you know, is able to move the ball around, if he's able to move the ball around. Let's go to the other side. Who on the defense does Michigan need to look out for? Is there a stud lurking around in that defense?
Last thing I should say also about Wimsatt is 0 turnovers. So that's been huge for him in his development. You know, you remember the Michigan game last year, he had those 3 interceptions after halftime. So that's like, this is kind of like a big kind of progress report for him in terms of he's going against a defense that really forced a lot of errors last time. Can he show his development progress now? Defensively, you know, they have so many contributors, but I think, and Schiano kind of said it this week, it's actually a former Michigan player, although he had a brief stint in Ann Arbor, Aaron Lewis from New Jersey, who was there for a semester or the summer, basically. And then his mother was sick. He transferred back home. And he's our best, I mean, arguably the best player on the team. He had 8 tackles, and he blew up a 2-point conversion last week. He had, I believe he was 3rd in pressures coming into the year, into the week. Pro Football Focus had him as a first-team All-Big Ten guy starting the season, and he was only one of 2 players with a grade of over 80 in the pass and the rush last year for most of the season. So he's their best guy. He gets doubled a lot, but when he, as Schiano said this week, when he is at his height, he is as good as it gets, and that's what they need from him this week. I think he's got to lead that charge and be that ultimate disruptor for the Rutgers defense.
Now, you guys are off to a 3-0 start, which is not unusual for Rutgers. You've been here a few times before. You're in the East, in the Big Ten. That's a difficult division to be in. This is the last year. Hopefully, this is the last year we're going to see divisions, and it's a tough play. Yeah, I mean, hopefully they don't go back to it. We don't know. We don't know with all these Pac-12 teams coming what they're planning on doing, but hopefully they do away with divisions. I don't think anybody in the East likes it, particularly teams like Rutgers that have to look at Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan year in and year out. But my question is, where do you see this Rutgers team finishing in the Big Ten? Do you think this team stays above 500, gets to a bowl game, maybe even makes a run at a championship? Is it that quality of a team, or do you think things regress to the mean and kind of level out near the end of the year?
Yeah, I think for Rutgers, the key is winning those matchup games, right? You know, I mean, and you never win them all. And that's kind of where I've been a little bit, not pessimistic, but I think, realistic in the sense of, I think, October is really where it's going to make this team. Regardless of what happens on Saturday against Michigan, a loss, even if they lose by 40 points, it doesn't take anything off the table for what their goals are this year, and that's to get to 6 wins. And then you look at October, they have Wagner after Michigan, so they're one of the worst FCS teams there is. You're 4-1. You're at Wisconsin. You have Michigan State at home for homecoming, and then you're at Indiana, a school you beat two years in a row. If they can squeeze out 2 wins there, they're bowl eligible before Halloween and going into their bye week. So I think it's realistic. November's really tough. Ohio State, they are at Iowa, which I think they have a shot. And then you have Penn State and Maryland. So I think that realistically, if they could finish, if they could get 3 Big Ten wins, maybe 4, I think your best case fourth place in the East, we would sign up for that in a heartbeat. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think that it's all about forward progress. I think this team, the difference in this team is that so far they've won handily because they're limiting their own mistakes and they're able to take advantage of their opponent mistakes. Now, can they do that in Big Ten play? Remains to be seen, but there's certainly signs that this is the best Rutgers team we've had in a while.
Finish this sentence. Rutgers wins against Michigan this weekend if
they force at least 3 turnovers.
I love that answer. I mean, I hate that answer, but I love that answer because that's exactly right. That is, JJ turned it over a few times last week. We saw how that can keep games close, and Rutgers is not Bowling Green. Rutgers is definitely a lot better than some of these non-conference opponents we've seen. So that's a really good answer. Fingers crossed on my side that that's not what happens, but I think that does give Rutgers a chance and keeps them in the game. Let's flip turn the tables here. Michigan wins if
I hate to be so simple, but if it comes down to turnovers, if Rutgers makes a couple critical mistakes early, I could see it getting out of hand pretty quickly. I think it's the type of thing, the longer Rutgers can stay within 1 score, the more pressure will be on Michigan. So Rutgers really has to get through that first half. And not to say that the second half would be easy by any stretch, but if they kind of self-destruct early on, it could be a really long day. So if they can get through that first quarter, turnover-free, they've only had 1 offensive turnover all season. If they can continue to play that way, I think they have a shot. If they don't, then it could be over by halftime.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I don't have any exclusive intel, but I do live, breathe, sleep, eat Michigan football. So are there any questions that you might have for a Michigan guy regarding this game?
What I'm curious, the impact that Harbaugh being on the sidelines is will have in terms of is it an emotional lift? And I'm also curious, it actually worries me because he's made such a point to say how much they respect Rutgers, and it's even eerie to hear you and other Michigan fans say that they're worried or this is going to be a tough game. It's a very strange place to be, but I almost wonder, because he's putting so much emphasis on that, do you think that he's trying to challenge his team and create an edge where maybe there is a good chance they come out, as fired up as they've been this season and have that kind of emotional lift early on?
Yeah, Dad went out of town. The babysitters were around. The kids had fun. They did a few things they shouldn't have done. But Daddy's home. Daddy's back home. So Harbaugh is back in the building, and I agree. I would not want to be facing Michigan the first week that Harbaugh's back. I do believe that it's an emotional lift, to your point. There's that intangible quality that having Harbaugh around just brings to the table. He's one of the most unique personalities in all of college football, really in all of sports. And just like Schiano kind of bleeds into the rest of the Rutgers program, Harbaugh bleeds into the rest of the Michigan program. So having him on the sideline absolutely matters. And then there's also just the practical piece of it, which is a lot of our assistants were having to pull double time when we were rotating head coaches through. We had, Sharon Moore was head coach and play caller and offensive line coach. Inserting Harbaugh back into that leadership position allows every assistant to just refocus on what their job is, which I think is going to help Michigan not make those little mistakes that we've seen a little bit of. Man, should be a good game. Any closing thoughts before we wind this thing up?
No, I mean, those are great points, by the way. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I just, from a Rutgers fan perspective, you just hope that they keep it close and they get out of there healthy. And, the longer they can stay in it, the better chance they have. But no Rutgers fan expects them to win. I mean, it's not even arguably, it would be the biggest win in school history. So I've tried to get fans to embrace that opportunity of what it would mean. But I think, most of us just hope that they play well enough that they show that in the Big Ten against the best, that they're going to be more competitive than they have been in recent years. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it's a 24-point line the last time I checked. It was a little bigger than I expected, actually. I thought it would come in 15, 16, 17, just because Rutgers has looked pretty good. They're giving Michigan a 24-point line. If you were going to put a score prediction out there, I don't know if you're a prediction guy, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. What would you predict as the final score of the game?
Well, I went with I went with 27-13. So Michigan 27, Rutgers 13. Is that a one-score game late and Michigan pulls away, or does Rutgers make it a little more respectable at the end? I think it could go either way, but I think Michigan will definitely win, but I think that Rutgers will at least impress to a point where people are like, okay, you know what? They represented themselves well enough.
I could see a world where that ends up being the score. And Aaron, if that happens, Michigan will fall in the rankings. I think if Rutgers can keep Michigan at a 27-13 type score, I think we see Michigan come in at 4 or 5 in the AP poll next week, because there's a few teams nipping at their heels. Texas, Florida State. You're going to have the winner of the Notre Dame Ohio State game that will have a pretty good argument at that point. So
right.
That would be a win for Rutgers, right? You wouldn't necessarily dethrone Michigan, but you'd have a negative impact on them. So that would be a fair, successful outing. Where can people follow you? I want my followers to know where they can get some good Rutgers intel, social, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. It's thescarletfaithful.com with so the Scarlet Faithful. I have a YouTube channel where I have a daily podcast. It's my name, Aaron Breitman. Also, on Apple and Spotify, all that. And then also in terms of Twitter, I'm at Aaron_Breitman. And then also Scarlet Faithful on Instagram as well.
Well, you are a friend of Wolverine Chronicle. We'll definitely get together again next year. Maybe talk some basketball when basketball season rolls around. You'll be my enemy on Saturday. Then we'll be friends again on Sunday. Thank you so much for taking the time. For Aaron Breitman, I'm Michael Smeltzer. That was Behind Enemy Lines.